Now, let's assume that we're losing a lot. And this will happen in trading. If you trade enough, you will go on losing streaks just like winning streaks. So let's imagine that we start the day and we've lost 3 trades in a row. So our drawdown for the day is 3%. Once we hit our drawdown of 3%, that's when it's about time to call a break for the day and return tomorrow. Because if we don't, you might end up risking more than 1% per trade. You might take trades that you wouldn't normally take because you're being emotional. And this is something we need to accept. So the max drawdown for the day, let's call it 3%. But you can have your own number. I wouldn't recommend anything too much higher than 3%. 3% is already pretty high. Okay, so what do we do when we come back tomorrow? What we do is we actually lower our risk. So instead of risking 1% per trade, we're going to risk 0.5. So we're going to half our risk. Now this might seem boring or less stimulating, but this is the proper way to do it. So now we're going to keep our same drawdown of negative 3%, but each trade is going to be 0.5%. So now we have a lot more breathing room in order to take more trades and sort of dig ourselves out of this hole that we built in the day prior. If we do manage to dig ourselves out of that hole, doing it the slow way, in this case it would almost be opposite of martingale. If you're unfamiliar with martingale, it's simply, you risk 1%, you lose, so now you're risking 2%, you lose, so now you're risking 4%, with the anticipation that one of those trades will win and you'll get back to break even. But the reality of probabilities is that there's no guarantee that one of those trades will work. They could all end up losing and you could lose your whole account. So instead of upping the risk when we lose, we're actually going to lower it. Now, like I said, if we can regain that 3% that we lost the day before, then the following day we can return back to our original risk. Now, what if we lose again? So instead of regaining that 3%, we lose another 3%. Well, now we can draw down the risk even more. A lot of you probably know what I'm going to say. We're going to reduce the risk again. So now we're going to reduce the risk to 0.25. And this process will repeat until we dig ourselves out of the original hole. Once we dig ourselves out of the original hole, then we can return back to our normal risk. By doing this, we allow ourselves to make mistakes and also never really blow up the account. The account can never really, you can't really lose all your money if you're always reducing risk when you're losing. It'll allow you to refine your edge, and when the risk is lower, you're going to act a lot more logically. What do I mean by logically? This brings us to set and forget. So set and forget is pretty simple. You have your stop loss, which is the S, right? Which is down here illustrated at the bottom of the red box. So you have your stop loss. You have your entry, which is the E for set. This is the distance, where the white and the red box meet, so where we're entering our trade. So we have our entry. And then the T is our target, or take profit, profit target. There's a lot of different ways there's a lot of different terminology in trading that you'll probably hear, but it's basically where we plan on selling at a higher price. So once we have our plan set in stone, we have our set, then we must not mess with the trade. We don't need to go in there and start tweaking it when the money's live. So once the money gets put onto the market and the money is live, we don't mess with it. One of two things is going to happen, right? You're either going to get stopped out and lose the trade, or you're going to hit your take profit and you're going to win the trade. Now, why this is important is because when you're risking less money, you're more likely to follow your plan. If you were to risk 10% of your account, you're more likely to close your trade earlier than you might would have done otherwise if you're risking less money. So this is important. We want to set our trade and forget it. Let it run. If it loses, then we'll reassess. We'll look what we could have done better. And sometimes there's nothing better you could have done. In the world of variance, you can lose trades even when you've done everything right, and you can win trades even when you've done everything wrong. It is important to go back and look and see maybe there is something we can do better, or maybe it was just the nature of the market. Regardless, we must follow our plan once it's set because once the money is live and you're staring at your unrealized P&L go up and down, you're very open to making mistakes. Whether it's the trade is hovering in the red and you're afraid that you're going to get stopped out, so you cut it early and then maybe the market rallies, or market's going up and you're afraid it's going to turn against you, so you cut it early on the profit target, and then the market soars higher. Now this also comes back to the point of, well, what's wrong with cutting my profit early? I mean, profit is profit, right? If I've made money on the trade, what's wrong with that? And this is a common misconception in trading. It's very popularized in retail trading of, well, profit's profit, right? Well, in the case of one trade, that's true. If we're only looking at this one trade, then yes, it would have been a good decision, regardless of the outcome that followed afterwards. But as a trader, you're not taking just one trade. You see, this assumption that, oh, I'll just take my profit and I'll be good because no one ever went broke taking profit is false. The reason why is because every trade that you enter isn't going to immediately run into profit. Sometimes it'll run into the negative. So in this instance, yes, you were able to take profit because the trade worked in your favor quickly, but sometimes the trades are going to move against you. In fact, it could be a lot of times, because in this case, because we're risking 1% to gain 3%, we must assume that the win rate is going to be lower than if we were risking 1% to gain 1%. So if the trade looks something like this, the probability of it winning, regardless of whatever strategy you're using, is going to be higher. Just by the nature of it, risking 1 unit to gain 1 unit is always going to be a higher probability than risking 1 unit to gain 3 units or 1 unit to gain 4 units or higher. So we must accept this. And so instead of cutting our profits early, so to speak, we have to follow our plan. Because in that first example where we cut our profits early, what if the next trade we take is a loser, and the trade that we take after that is a loser? When we have a winning trade, we need to let it pay for the losing trades. You'll hear this a lot. Cut your losers early and let your winners run. Because you will have losing trades and you will have winning trades. And it's important that when you do have a winning trade, it ends up paying for your losing trades and then some. Because at the end of the day, you want to make money, you want to profit. After fees and commissions are taken into account, after losing trades are taken into account, the winning trade needs to be big in order to pay for all that. So this is the basics so far. I plan on posting another video soon to go more in depth and eventually start explaining strategy and how I look at the market in terms of where I want to enter and where I want to exit. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, all that stuff that YouTubers say. And I'll see you next time.